Well, we're waking up on a Friday morning after Thursday Throwdown 29 and Melbourne United won in emphatic fashion over the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Plenty of questions to be asked. You're here with NBL Now, brought to you by Code Sports, the home of NBL coverage. I'm Kelsey Browne, and I'm joined today by none other than a legend of NBL basketball, four-time All-First Team member, chip winner, Mark Worthington. Thank you so much for joining us. I have so many questions for you, plenty to get through to get all the games over the weekend. But I want to hear your thoughts firstly on last night's game. Southeast Melbourne, plenty to work on.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, let's talk about the positives of the game, and that is Melbourne United, who, and I'll make the reference because it's AFL Grand Final weekend, they are the Geelong of the NBL because of how well they recruit year in and year out. You think a couple of years back they bring in Jack White, they bring in Dellavedova, and they get very close, and then they have some turnover again. You say, where to now for United? And then they bring in Milton Doyle, Jesse Edwards, Finn Delaney, Walker. Like, as a collective, they've done a fantastic job. And Dean Vickerman, I think a lot of credit needs to go to him and his evolution as a coach. I think a lot of people put him in the upper echelon, maybe in the top two coaches of this league. And yet here he is again, putting another string to his bow with the way that United have started the season. They are most definitely the best prepared team at this stage, and scary in the thought that they've got Chris Goulding still to come back into this lineup as well.
For Southeast Melbourne, though, we know they lost that import spot in Friends Blyenberg. They need to find something, though. In the coverage last night, the commentators were really stressing how much they need a playmaker. And online too, if you go to X, you'll find a lot of people talking about just what they need. What do you think they need?
I am in the same opinion. They definitely need a playmaker outside of a Nathan Sobey to make it work. You look at the makeup of their roster at the moment, and there's a lot to unpack in their roster, in my opinion, of where they currently sit. Obviously, it's a bit turbulent letting go of the import just before the season, but the roster to me still doesn't quite fit and gel. They're very reminiscent to me of the old Wollongong Hawks, where they would play up the court pressure. They would make you turn the ball over early in the game, but didn't quite have the group offensively to make it happen over 4 quarters. And that's exactly what we saw last night. They made United turn the ball over 12 times in the first half, and rattled them like we haven't seen United rattled so far this season. Where they get unstuck for me is their lack of structure and a playmaker outside of Sobey to make it work for them offensively. There's no doubt they're a very good defensive team, but I would say that they're on the bottom end of the offensive scale. They definitely need a playmaker. I think that Brown, as fantastic as what he is defensively, I think he hurts them offensively with his poor spacing. And you were at the game last night. He got the second most amount of shots behind Nathan Sobey. My question would be, mate, there's a reason why you're open. Melbourne United wants you to shoot the ball. Like, that is a good option for him. So stop shooting the ball, maybe go into more dribble handoffs, something like that. And then the last piece of this puzzle for Southeast Melbourne, for me, is the narrative around Nathan Sobey. For 3 quarters of that game, he was outstanding in what he was able to do offensively for the Phoenix. But this narrative of you take the bad with the good with Nathan Sobey. Now, I think the one player that comes to my mind when we hear about that is Manu Ginobili. And the Spurs always talked about you taking the bad with the good with Manu. That is fine when you're the 3rd or 4th option on the team. To have someone like that can win you a game and be the X factor. In this instance, Nathan Sobey is the Tim Duncan. They can't afford for him to be the bad. They need him to be the good consistently. And it's no surprise to me that for the first 27 minutes of that game, when Nathan was outstanding, in my opinion, in what he was bringing offensively, it was the last 13 minutes where it unraveled that the Phoenix also unraveled in that game to me. So Sodes needs to lose that narrative of taking the bad with the good. And for the Phoenix to be successful this year, he needs to be good all the game and be solid.
Yeah, there's a lot riding on his shoulders and Josh King's at the moment, plenty to turn around. And hopefully the next Throwdown is a little bit more competitive. We've got another rivalry in the league heading up tonight. Cairns comes up against Brisbane. It's up in Cairns for their first home game. They've got a new look roster. We've absolutely loved what they've put together in the off season, but plenty of question marks after their first outing. How do they bounce back after that domination from Phoenix in round one?
Have you watched the show Ted Lasso?
I have.
Be a goldfish. That's all that needs to happen. Just be a goldfish. And 40 has built a roster around that, I think, with the talent that he has at his disposal. I don't think they need to panic. They didn't have Sam Wardenberg, and they're not going to have him for the next couple of weeks. They didn't have an import point guard. They made the change just before the start of the season, and the Phoenix picked that apart in round one. For me, I'm not panicking with Cairns. I think that they are a finals-bound team this year when it all clicks. And I know that might be an unpopular pick with how much talent's in the league, but I love 40 as a coach. I think he gets the absolute best out of his players. We should, like in every sport, you should never take anything out of round one. Round one, it's why you don't bet on round one, because you just don't know what's going to happen. I think back at home in Cairns, that fan base, they've been crying out for some success for a few years now. They've bought in and they've spent money. I'm all chips in with Cairns. I think they're going to be fine.
You talk about that point guard spot. They didn't have Andrew Andrews last week. Rumor is he's set to play. What are you excited about from this guy? What are you liking about him coming into this lineup? And is it a risk for 40 to play him now straight off the plane, or is that the best thing for the team?
First off, you got to love a name that's so nice. You've got to say it twice. And with Andrew Andrews, he's a vet first and foremost. He's played for some fantastic teams around the world. One of them being Panathinaikos. You want someone who brings that sort of stability to your lineup. He would be a pro. There's no doubt. You can't play for the clubs that he's played for around the world and not be a pro about how you go about your business. So for me, there is no doubt that 40 would just throw him in. He would have picked up the really good point guards, pick up stuff really, really quickly. And with his resume, there's no doubt that he would have picked up stuff really quickly. So for me, throw him in, see what it looks like. Obviously, a great task in having Jalen Adams first as your first matchup. But I think they're very different players. That Jalen Adams is very much an offensive weapon, where Andrew Andrews will be definitely setting up his teammates a lot more, getting Jack McVeigh, getting Ryan Smith, getting Admiral Schofield better looks at the basket and just controlling the pace of the game.
You just named one of the matchups I'm most excited to watch for this weekend. The other one for me is Jack McVeigh. A little bit of criticism for him outside of the first game. What would you say to $1 Million McVeigh if it was coming into this round? What do you need to let go of?
First and foremost, Jack doesn't listen to anything like this, so it doesn't matter what we say. But Jack is one of one, and this is what I love about Jack. If I can wind back the clock, when I was with the national team, they brought in Jack when he was still at Nebraska, and his his thirst to learn and just want to play one-on-one basketball. To me, there's no surprise that he's hit the heights that he has. He's just another one where I'll just say, just be Jack. just he was so good in that Tassie run. He's gone and got more experience with the Houston Rockets. For me, Jack just needs to come out, and he wouldn't hear any of the outside noise with everything that's going on, and just play his game. He's unorthodox, he's quirky, he's what the league needs, and he's a perfect fit for me. Of once he feels more comfortable with 40, that we're going to see some 40-point games from Jack McVeigh somewhere along the line this season. I've got no doubt about it, because he's that talented offensively.
Speak about the personalities. He's one of my favourites, and I'm very happy that he is back in the league. On the other side of things, they come up against the Brisbane Bullets. Now, I'm not sure whether anyone was shocked that they went over to New Zealand and got it done against the Breakers, but they had a great game. And Casey Prather, he's carried on his form from last season. Cairns, they obviously need to shut down a Casey Prather, but was there anybody else in the Brisbane Bullets side that you think they need to focus on this evening?
I think the big one is how well Harrison's started the season and what he looks like. And obviously for Brisbane, just as a whole, they've got to double this weekend. They've got Cairns first and they've got Adelaide second. So we get to see Tyrell versus Marcus Lee, who's a very good defender in this league, and Isaac Humphries, who's arguably one of the best big defenders. And for me, I think this gives us a true indication if he is in all NBL first team contention. I mean, that's a very early call, but his numbers in round one versus New Zealand were outstanding and quite clearly the best. And he's one that sort of slips under the radar because we talk about JLA, we talk about JaVale McGee coming into the league. Here's someone who seemingly has gotten better year on year, and Cairns are going to have their hands full trying to limit him. I think if they can limit him to a 15-10 game, I think that should be his watermark this season. Such his dominance so far and his growth in his game over the years. I'm really high on him this year and looking forward to what he does this weekend.
To close out this game, I want to ask about Javon Freeman-Liberty. He squashed some rumours this week that he was homesick and he wanted to get out of the NBL. They were running rampant, those rumours on X. What do you think about his start to the season? And is there some growing pains for imports coming into the league?
Yeah, it's always difficult. Having been an import over in Serbia and a few different other countries, it's difficult. You do get homesick at some stage along the line, whether it is with a partner, whether it is with your kids, whether it's with family or even with friends. Like, your safety net of your inner circle are not around you for the most part when you're an import coming to a new country. There's a lot to be said about trying to make an import feel welcome and feel like they're part of something that's more than just basketball as well. And so everyone goes through their journey a little bit differently. I think this happens a lot more than what we actually talk about. And I mean, there is a mental health aspect to this as well, which I'm pretty passionate about, that you have to walk these lines fairly carefully when we talk about this sort of stuff. But the best thing Brisbane can do is rally around him, put their arms around him, whether these rumors are true or not. If they're coming out, there's an element of truth here, and just make sure that he feels welcome in any way possible. Was it the best start to the season for him personally? No. This guy's an absolute star. And I think a top 3 player in this league once he's up and going. So whatever Brisbane need to do to make sure that they make him feel welcome and comfortable, they've got to do everything in their power to make that happen.
Love that from you, Wertho. It's something that we don't speak about often enough, and I love that you've just raised that. We've got a huge weekend of hoops ahead. It's the first time that we see Sydney, Illawarra, Adelaide all just start NBL 26. I'm mostly excited about Adelaide, but is there anybody else out of those three teams that you're excited to see line up for their first game this weekend?
Yeah, I'll go with the Hawks because obviously they're our reigning champions. Few changes in the off season. Obviously, losing Sam Froling was a huge loss for him, but to be able to pick up someone like JaVale McGee into this is massive. The league has not seen an import like this before. With this level of athleticism, I am interested to see how quickly he simulates into this league and how quickly and I'll give credit with credit is due, and anyone that knows me knows that I don't like the referees, but I think they've been outstanding to start this season. So I'll give credit with credit is due. They've been fantastic to start the season, and I hope that carries through because when you see someone of this magnitude who can block shots with their elbow at the rim, and I'm dare say we're going to see many, many posters this year. I'm just excited to see how he fits into our league and what sort of damage he can do.
You're right. JaVale McGee is someone that everyone is pumped to see this weekend. It's been quite a turbulent week for Adelaide, though, with them parting ways with Montrezl Harrell. It's been tough for Adelaide over the years. Do you think they can move past this week and put out a good performance against Brisbane, who are performing quite well at the moment?
Have they put anything behind them in the last 5 years? There is like the gift that just keeps on giving. And I feel silly because I thought, wow, they've really turned the corner. Like the signing of Bryce Cotton, I think for any organization is bigger than Ben-Hur, in my opinion. And I was like, wow, they were able to get him. They were able to re-sign Montrez. They brought in Xylem Cheatham, who I really enjoyed watching him play for New Zealand a few seasons back. And you could see what they were building on top of two really good Aussies in DJ and Ice. And then this happens, and I want to slap myself for believing that it's changed because it's just the same old, same old. And now we've got to wait to see what the results look like on the court going forward. I am a firm believer that the Trez Isaac combination didn't really fit and doesn't really work in our league. That being said, I was really excited because he was in shape and he was fit and he looked like he was like a full year of Trez would have been a lot of fun. Now they've got to move on, and they're lucky that they have someone who I believe is the greatest in Bryce. He's the greatest I ever played against. So hard to defend and guard, and at least they've got that to lean on. But sometimes with Adelaide, you just got to shake your head and just smile because it's just at that stage with that organisation that it's going to take time for, I think, for a lot of us basketball fans to actually acknowledge that they've put anything behind them.
There's always plenty happening out of Adelaide, and I think Sunday will be no different. Wertho, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I've loved listening to your insights. I love how you say it. You're an asset to this league. So thank you very much for joining us on NBL Now. NBL Now has been brought to you by this Code Sports. From slam dunks to the stories that you don't see during the games, it has all of your NBL news covered, expert insights and insider access on and off the court. Codesports.com.au if you want to look at anything NBL related. Wortho, thank you so much for your time. We can't wait to see your insights throughout the season and enjoy this weekend of Roots.